Hello, and welcome to Mayday Roleplay. Thank you for joining us as we come together to tell stories of ghosts, beloved characters created by their storytellers who have met their final chapters. We here come to bear witness to last impressions and learn to say goodbye. This is the game Ghostfi. But before we turn our next page, some housekeeping is in order. We'd like to thank our handler-level Patreon contributors. Their involvement allows us here at Mayday to continue to produce and tell stories for your viewing pleasure. So thank you to Advance War Sammy, OG Pan, Bimble Ward, Cameron S, Kirby's Double, Moria, Brandon C, Jonathan M, and Ren. If you too would like to contribute to Mayday, and be sure to find us on Patreon, you'll get access to early releases, art, bi-monthly games run by Mayday, and our Discord server built around our wonderful community there. And expect VOD exclusive runs of Ghostfi by the Mayday members, and a campaign diary in the near future. If you haven't heard, we have completed the 3rd season of our Delta Green series, Doomed to Repeat, which is now available along with our extensive catalog of completed seasons and shows on our YouTube for VODs, or anywhere you get your podcasts for audio-friendly versions. Be sure to join us bi-weekly live as we play through our Vampire the Masquerade campaign, Vegas by Night. And as always, follow us on all major social media platforms and our website for updates on future content and other news. We also would love to thank the wonderful guests who are coming to tell stories with us, top-tier creatives in the actual play and TTRPG scene, gifted storytellers, and their beloved characters. And be sure during those episodes to follow their amazing work in the descriptions listed. Ghostfi is a game about death and grief and the complicated lives of complex characters. This is an actual play that is intended for mature audiences. Please take care of yourself and be aware. Our players are under the guidance of safety tools. An X card can be employed at any time. And with that, let us begin. So let us introduce our cast here today.
Hey everybody, it's Sergio from Mayday. Today I'm putting a D&D character I played many years ago named Brightbottle to rest. I'm looking forward to it. He's been
And I,
haunting me.
and I'm Eli. I will be your guide today. Brightbottle, you're not unfamiliar with death. Your journey has allowed you to confront this part of existence more than once. And it has absolutely left an impression upon you as you continued on. And even now, in these final moments of your time with the living, as you transition to the beyond, you return to an almost familiar place of nothingness. No sensation of feeling, no sensation of sound, or smell or anything. You return back to the nothing. But as we all know, nothing can be something. And as you regain some sense here, and you enter what is known as the manifestation, a construct of a location that for Brightbottle has left an impression on them. And it's some place that they seem to want to return to when all things are said and done. So describe to me in this what this space looks like, what it is, what comes to mind when the end is near.
Brightbottle was part of an adventuring party, and they had become famous enough to save the world and basically earn themselves a castle. They had, kind of gained a reputation enough that the kingdom wanted them in a place that befit their stature, and so the party ended up gaining a castle and revamping it and kind of making it their own fortress. And when Brightbottle passed, they were in the Underdark and they wanted to get back to that castle. So I think that intention, that desire to manifest back at that castle is what brings them there, and that's where they find themselves. The castle is not particularly unique. It was kind of brand new in the sense that it was kind of built for them. It wasn't on any kind of mountaintop or anything like that. It was just outside the main capital. So just kind of like on a beautiful rolling hills. For a fantasy world, it was a relatively new castle, not some kind of ancient ruin, and it was designed to their the party's specifications and desires. So it was kind of an ideal place.
Wonderful. Let's take a moment to describe Brightbottle, what they look like, who they might be to those who've never had the opportunity or the pleasure to meet him.
Brightbottle was basically my second D&D character, and he was a gnome alchemist who lived in a world very similar to like Critical Role's Tal'Dorei in its kind of shape and design and look. And he was an anxious little man who very much wanted to make a success out of himself. He had started a little alchemist shop that was kind of a mobile shop that he kept on the back of his pet donkey, D'Artagnan, who he traveled with that donkey around the land in his kind of tiny home attached to the back of this donkey, and he sold alchemy supplies, potions, and things like that. And Brightbottle became an adventurer almost kind of not intentionally, and found himself in some very dangerous situations, surviving most of them. But twice, something interesting happened. Once, he was down in the Underdark trying to save the world with his party, and a group of cloakers, which are particularly vicious Underdark creatures, attacked the party, targeted Brightbottle, and basically consumed him, killed him. And the cleric of the party brought him back to life. But it was at the end of a session, and I couldn't help as a player but leave things on a climax. So when the DM says, Brightbottle sits up and someone asks, are you okay, Brightbottle? I had to end the session by saying, who's Brightbottle? Which implied that from then on, Brightbottle was technically back, but his personality had changed, almost as if another personality had taken over. And this was a bit of more of a brash person who went by Schnick as their name. Brightbottle's full name was Schnickodemus Frugalrock, which is a totally normal gnome name. The point, though, being is that Brightbottle continued for another good long while as this Schnick character, but eventually that person died at the hands of a demon that they had pissed off in the City of Doors, where the Queen of Pain is, whatever her name is. He had said something very rude to a demon, and that demon had followed him, tracked him down, and had him teleported to hell, or whatever the version of hell that demons are in, and basically was tortured till death. And I remember in one of the last games, that demon showed up having a little gnome skull around his neck. So needless to say, Schnickodemus, Schnick, Brightbottle, did not die peacefully. So that is the character that we find ourselves with, having died twice, lived multiple lives, and really never accomplishing anything that they wanted to, short of making good friends with the adventuring party and, that.
Fortresses are buildings with purpose. Not only are they grand, like in a way, like a castle can be, but they're also representations of security, fortification, the ability to find safety and refuge when the world around you seems chaotic and dark. And I think that's very fitting to construct such a space, given that the last few moments of Brightbottle's life was filled with such pain and uncertainty. And as Brightbottle wanders these familiar halls of a place that was constructed by not only their hands, but the hands of companions that shared a journey with him, he finds that these halls and ways are empty, not filled with the familiarity of those people. But while there's a moment of feeling lonely, as you enter into maybe the hall in which you shared food and camaraderie, there's a moment where you feel a pang of connection, that in this space that you find yourself alone, you're not actually really alone. And that is where you find your guide. Mm. To Brightbottle, what would this guide look like? Who is this person that has decided to come here and share and bear witness to this next part of Brightbottle's life?
Brightbottle did become close with certainly his adventuring party, but there was one particular person that they had to let go of, because at a certain point the adventuring just became too dangerous. We went down to the Underdark and things like that. And so one day Brightbottle did make the decision to put his friend and his companion D'Artagnan, the donkey, out to pasture. And I think it always left a hole in his heart, because D'Artagnan was his first kind of ally in the beginning years of his adventuring. And I think as he's wandering the halls and now kind of in this large empty space, I think it's D'Artagnan that shows up, looking just as he did, kind of skinny, scrawny donkey, but seeing him there waiting for him, I think Brightbottle is absolutely all of the dread of am I dead? What am I? What's going on? Kind of washes away as he sees this companion. Um, and if we want D'Artagnan to talk to him, he absolutely can. Yeah.
Yes, centered in this hall, this donkey who served multiple purposes, who carried your home with you wherever you went, so that you had these familiar comforts, a companion in your own right, one that you respected so much that that sometimes in letting go of a companion in order to allow them to live a better life is maybe sometimes the more noble thing to do. And you approach D'Artagnan, and they kind of crane their head down low, so you're able to kind of stroke their face, and they share this. They share in this familiarity with you. And as you look at D'Artagnan, there's something about them that just speaks upon a level of empathy and openness, a deeper understanding than maybe you expect here in this moment. But they are with you, and you are not alone. So why don't we start with looking at some parts of Brightbottle? Draw me your first card.
Okay, here we go. Drawing a card. I have a 10 of clubs.
10 of clubs.
And just to confirm, the club is the upside down heart, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm right.
Of clubs. So clubs are about the self, a personal affliction. And the 10 of clubs talks about an injustice that was done to a person that you were close with. So let's talk about that. What is a personal affliction that Brightbottle has experienced with somebody that you consider extremely close?
An injustice that was done to me or to my ally?
An injustice that was done to a person you were close with. So something that you did that created that was seen as an injustice to another.
Ah. Brightbottle was a bit of a troublemaker. He kind of just did whatever he wanted, and so he would get in trouble sometimes for that, but he was very loyal to his allies in the adventuring party. The injustice could have been that... Okay. Brightbottle did not like the cleric that brought him back. The cleric was in many ways a fool, in many ways incompetent, was kept around because he could heal, but he was the opposite of what Brightbottle wanted to be, which was efficient and professional and seen in a positive, kind of high stature. And I think more often than not, Brightbottle spoke down to him and probably did not give this dwarf cleric the credit he deserved. I think where he could have shown this dwarf grace, he instead, belittled him and really never accepted him for who he was. And so that could be an injustice that he feels, this realization now when his life is over, that where he could have been kind to someone, he instead chose to be cruel to them, and he regrets it.
Roll me a d4.
All right, here we go. D4, that's a 1.
1. A 1 is an absolute failure. We will automatically add 1 to your failed progress and 1 spite token. So even though Brightbottle feels pangs of regret in the way that they treated this person, what does failure look like here when confronting that injustice? Where does Brightbottle how does Brightbottle kind of turn away from it instead of looking or seeking absolution or forgiveness?
I kind of feel that what happens is it becomes a snowball effect where Brightbottle realizes there were many things he did while living that he regrets, many choices, many decisions, and he almost becomes distracted by it. And in doing so, decides to kind of put his attention towards something else instead of lingering forever in regret, as maybe many ghosts do, deciding to kind of put his energy into something else, into maybe that bit of Brightbottle that still exists, that need for a person to accomplish things and to be the busybody that he was. Maybe that's a kind of denial that he enters. I can solve this in a different way, and puts that regret towards the back of his ghost brain.
I like that. There's nothing wrong with being driven. Driven is what we all seek to do, to seek purpose, to accomplish goals, to look towards a bigger horizon or see the bigger picture. But sometimes in the obsessive pursuit of being driven, one forgets about others even, and the other smaller things that come with collecting a journey. And it can make somebody unkind, and it can make somebody apathetic towards the feelings of others, because why should others' feelings matter when I am seeking to reach something bigger than myself? And that's how that kind of happens. And while you are thinking about the next step, that feeling doesn't necessarily go away. Those feelings of shame and regret, it sits with you, and it becomes more of a weight, like putting a stone in a pocket, and it goes along with you. And even if you're still looking ahead and towards the future, if you take a moment to pause, that weight still lingers and it doesn't quite go away, and it fills you with resentment even, or spite, that you cannot shed or let go this heavy burden that seems to follow you wherever you go. Wonderful. So let's pull our second card.
All right, pulling the second card, we get a 3 of diamonds.
3 of diamonds. Excellent. Diamonds are locations, places we go to or are connected to. And the 3 of diamonds. The 3 of diamonds is a place where you fell in love for the first time.
I suppose where he fell in love for the first time is where he is from. There was a large forest to the west, and that is where Brightbottle grew up. There was an enormous kind of magical tree that his people lived at the base of, but would travel in and out of the tree. And I would suspect he'd probably fall in love with someone he really shouldn't, which was probably an attractive elf woman that lived in the tree or had some kind of status. Maybe it was a teacher or a something of theirs, where they were close with them. That's where they fell in love for the first time, and those pangs of regret come in as they even think about this, because eventually, before he started adventuring, Brightbottle had to leave this magical place because he almost burnt it to the ground in his pursuit of alchemical studies. So it's kind of a place that is fond because he grew up there and he fell in love for the first time there, but it also kind of hurts to think about it because he was basically banned from ever returning. So That's where he fell in love for the first time.
I love that. Roll me that D4.
Okay. This time a 2.
A 2.
Yeah.
So a 2 is a partial failure. Your actions fail, but nothing gets worse. So we'll do this in 2 parts. Let's talk about the failure aspect of this, and then we'll re-roll that additional D4 to see if that hinders your progress or builds more spite that you're already starting to feel. So what does failure look like to here? The fondness of home, the place where you experience some of your first experiences before becoming an adventurer and finding those experiences elsewhere.
Yeah, if Brightbottle had his way, I don't think he would have thought to come here. He kind of put his home in his past, in the back of his mind, and he's almost caught off guard that he's returned here and that he's, visiting this place with D'Artagnan. And again, I think it's like he's getting gut punched. It's kind of what I think it's what I think death would be like, where you are reminded of things that you haven't thought about in a long time and that you have thought don't affect you in the least. And yet now you're confronting and you're realizing that they're maybe at the root of everything. So I think he's just really taken aback. He was thinking he might see his adventurers and his allies, and he's being brought back to the most base, fundamental things that make him who he is. And it's not leaving a positive effect on him. You know what I mean? It's surprising him and frustrating him.
Yeah. I mean, home is a bittersweet place to be sometimes, and as the familiarity of your manifestation, this fortress fades away to the familiarities of home, and under that beautiful tree is the person that Brightbottle fell in love with for the first time, seemingly looking out at this small town where you began everything, where you started your alchemy journey, where you were raised amongst friends and family and all the sorts and stuff like that. Typically these are places of comfort, but as you stand there with D'Artagnan and realize that even beginnings can be painful and have those bits of scars and reminders of some of the more bitter parts of it, the desire to leave just grows. And maybe that's the desire that drove Brightbottle to leave altogether, to abandon a future that could have been forged within this familiar space. But to return to it when there are so many other beautiful places that were experienced and other magnificent regions that were explored, leaves not a weight in your pocket, but maybe a more bitter taste in your mouth. And to reminisce on those unpleasant flavors just make you feel even heavier than you did before, and the world seems darker around you for having to return to a place I don't think you ever wanted to return again. And to be reminded of that leaves that bitterness, and it lingers. And as the town fades away, as that woman that you loved dissipates into nothing, and you return to the familiar place of your manifestation, this fortress, the security alongside your guide, D'Artagnan looks up at you, perhaps you're riding on his back, and they crane their neck back at you and fold their ears back as donkeys can, and you're met with this level of openness, empathy, and a sense of warmth that here your companion understands you completely, and maybe even more so than what you believe D'Artagnan is capable of doing. But you come back to this space and you return to your fortress of security, and you are but that bitterness still lingers on you. And with that, you will roll me a d4, and we will see what happens.
A 1.
You rolled a 1. You will not gain spite here, but you will add another to your failed progress.
Okay.
As much as it leaves a bitter taste in your mouth, it is not enough to allow resentment to add to what you've already experienced.
Yeah, I think D'Artagnan giving me some reassurance helped.
All right. Well, why don't we pull our final card and see where that takes us?
Hope I get a power card. Here we go. 3 of clubs.
3 of clubs. So clubs again are about the self, a personal affliction. And the 3 of clubs represents regret of a path not taken. So, what is a regret of a path not taken look like for Brightbottle?
I actually think Brightbottle in both of his incarnations pretty much did what he wanted to do. I don't think he would have ultimately been satisfied just being a business person or somebody that runs a little alchemy shop. I think he was looking for that adventure. Really, what I think he regrets is when he was Schnick, the more bombastic, over-the-top version of himself after he had initially died in the Underdark. I think he regrets being so reckless in telling a demon to go screw themselves, or, just telling a demon that they didn't think they were much at all. And I think because he spent his final hours, probably days, in incredible agony and pain and suffering at the hands of this vengeful demon. So I think more than anything, he wishes that as Schnick, he had just kind of kept his mouth shut, and he would have been able to die of old age with his allies at his side. But it didn't end up that way. It was much, much more bittersweet. So that is probably genuinely his biggest regret, is not reining himself in that moment.
Roll me a d4.
Okay. Please give me a 3 or a 4. Let's have one success here, gang. A 3.
Beautiful. So a 3 is a partial success. Your actions is successful, but a complication is introduced. So what does success look like here? When someone in reflection realizes that restraint might have been the best course of action, how does one forgive themselves for choosing not to, and understanding what those results come from?
Yeah, I think it is about forgiveness, like you just said. It's about like acknowledging that they made a mistake, that they could not defeat this thing that at the time they thought, oh, I'll eventually be able to defeat this demon. They were not able to. They failed, but accepting that they failed, accepting that this was now the time. This is no longer the time to regret and to reminisce. This is the time to accept both your successes and failures and find a way to move on. There's still a lot of baggage, which is maybe the partial success, but I think Brightbottle is starting to finally get what business is left of them to accomplish here as a ghost.
Roll me an additional d4.
A 1.
A 1. If when an odd number is rolled, no progress is made towards your successes or failures, but spite is added to to your spite count. So even though Brightbottle has acknowledged this, what resentment comes? What adds to the spite here instead of progress?
And spite is literally what it means. It doesn't represent other things. It means something is keeping them upset or
Yeah,
spiteful.
pretty much in that same guise. Any negative-ish term towards regret, things like that. What makes a ghost uncontent, essentially.
I think that since it's always been about kind of Brightbottle's unique personality and the different versions of it, the different iterations of it, I feel like Brightbottle is having a hard time kind of processing the things they're learning. I think like a lot of their same anxious personality is manifesting and kind of trying to make sense of the things they're learning, and I don't think it's enough. I don't think it's the right mindset. I think they're still thinking like a business person, that they can solve this problem by applying themselves in some kind of way, and I don't think they understand it's more about letting go. So I think that's what it is they can't, they're kind of stuck in their mode of thinking, and it's not allowing them to move forward. You know, the way somebody might have a personality defect or an addictive personality or something, you know, it takes a lot of effort to change that aspect of you. And I don't think Brightbottle is getting that.
Self-reflection is a very difficult thing to do, especially when self-reflection comes at a point in which it cannot be fixed. We're here at the end, and it is not something that in a business mindset where a transactional exchange can happen, where contracts could be made, or forging of new agreements can be built in order to ratify past transgressions. It requires us to sit here and deal with it and confront it, and it can be very unpleasant, especially for one who is not ready to face those kinds of reflection. And as Brightbottle sits with that bit, with a path of regret, of the desire to want to bring restraint to themselves, to forget about home, to forget about it all, and just focus on what is laying ahead. This place demands you to sit here, and it does not render pleasantries for you. It brings resentment. It brings anger and frustration of, why do we need to think about this when I could move on to the next adventure where I could go find something new? But this place does not allow you that mindset. It requires you to sit here and reflect upon it. And sitting somewhere in this fortress, in this place that you've built with your own hands, the reminder that even the bad things yielded into the construction of such a beautiful space, and a place in which you made intrinsically yours, and was shared by those who shared in the same spirit of adventure, to look at new places, to have their own goals, and seek something on the horizon. We have taken time to explore some of these tethers that keep Brightbottle connected to the world before him. And as you're sitting on D'Artagnan, they begin to move on their own accord, and you can hear the clopping of their hooves echoing through this space as they start leading you down a hallway, maybe towards the outside, somewhere where they can find an exit. And as we move from looking at some of these tethers, we enter a place that is known as the crossing. And the crossing represents locations that go into different directions. These can be such places as airports, bus stations, stairwells, forks in the road. They can also be portals, such as doors and gates and cave entrances, pools even. These are places that lead to other different ways, and one has to make a decision on which path to take. So for you, what is a place in which Brightbottle would find themselves on a path that leads in multiple directions?
Well, I think it's got to go back to the original place where he lost his life the first time, probably the Underdark. I'd like to think that maybe D'Artagnan starts going down into the underbelly of the fortress, and they find themselves in, circular tunnels that look dug out of the ground, and there's a chance that D'Artagnan is leading him out of the Underdark and towards the light, or possibly deeper into the Underdark. But that's, I think, the familiar place, the crossing that Brightbottle finds himself in.
Awesome. So there's two ways we handle this phase of this. This is kind of a moment to reflect upon the tethers and to make a final decision of what direction we go. Do we hold on to the security and the familiarity of a time during the living, or do we seek to move forward despite it all? And there's two ways we can handle it. One is through just reflection. We look at our successes and failures in spite, and we come to an agreement on what direction we take, or we contest it, where we build a dice pool based on those successes and failures, and we roll dice and figure out what those results mean to us.
Well, I do love to roll dice, but as a person who played Brightbottle, I'm realizing that the story of Brightbottle was not about easy endings or clear-cut successes. And I kind of like the idea of reflecting on the failures and kind of making a decision about when and where they cross over, because in my mind, I kind of like the idea of Brightbottle haunting that fortress for a little while. I like the idea of the adventuring party, maybe waking up late at night and hearing the clopping of D'Artagnan's hooves, or maybe the echo of Brightbottle whispering something or saying something in the halls. Maybe the sight of someone small out of the corner of your eye, kind of darting around a corner. I like the idea of Brightbottle haunting this place for a little while. So I think I'm probably going to choose reflection, and I think that's what those success and failures look like. Like, it's mostly a failure, right? I've had mostly 1s and 2s and 1-3. So it's probably a long time that Brightbottle stays in this place and as a ghost manifests and is slowly learning the lesson they need before they cross over.
Yeah, and you're right. You only have two points towards your failure and 2 spites that were made. No success was made for you and Brightbottle. So yeah. So with that, with knowing that a lot of this brings bitterness and resentment and moves away from your desire to kind of move forward in the way that you want to seek those horizons, to do the business that doesn't require you to reflect upon this past.
I almost like the idea of Brightbottle not being the one that ultimately helps him cross. I almost think the party eventually comes together, the adventuring party, is like, are we all seeing Brightbottle's ghost wandering the halls, and maybe they make the effort to exorcise him and send him off? I think that would have been something that totally would have happened. So maybe that's how he eventually finds himself, that his adventuring party, whether he realizes or not, are the ones that help him cross over.
Totally. So that leads us to our next point. Is Brightbottle, despite knowing these failures and understanding that these heavy feelings, are manifested through being reminded of other times that they don't want to, are these things that Brightbottle can ultimately let go and pass on in peace, or are these going to be, like you were mentioning, the reasons why Brightbottle should stay?
I think at the end of all things, there is no business left over, and any self-respecting ghost will put that together eventually. I think that everyone deserves some peace in the end, and I think so does Brightbottle. So whether he learns his lessons or not, I don't think it matters as much as his party, who loved him, wants him to get some rest and to move on in whatever that looks like. And so, although I think the failures in our roles today reflect a haunting of him not being able to move on, I think his allies help him nonetheless. And sometimes we need our help from our friends to take us to that next step, whether we realize it's for our best or not. So, yeah, I think that he does successfully cross over. Maybe it takes couple of decades of haunting the fortress, but I think he eventually does. And I think it doesn't matter that his spirit doesn't necessarily come to grips with who he is and what he's done. I think that the finding of peace is good enough.
There's a moment in this dissension down into the Underdark that, as you are traveling with this companion that has carried you along the way, into all forms of adventure and horizons, where as you keep going deeper and deeper into the darkness, almost to the point where, like, if you were to look up, you can just see but a small glimmer of light, that last bit of it. And as you kind of look up, that's the moment where you feel and hear those bits of your adventuring party, the laughter, the joy, the well-met conversations that were probably had over fires, this prospect of sharing hopes and dreams, can be kind of whispered up above. And there's just this moment as you continue to descend into the darkness, into this relative unknown, that you're not content with the fact that you need to keep going that the real adventure is above you, and that you don't have to descend into darkness alone, when you could have an opportunity to share in one last moment with the people that have come to understand you a lot more than home has, than anyone else probably has in the time that you have shared in your life. And I think there's just a point where you get off the back of D'Artagnan, and D'Artagnan continues to descend into the darkness, into nothingness, essentially. And you begin to reclimb those staircases back to the hearth of this fortress, which you helped build. You forged it through the works that you were able to accomplish in acquiring it, in making it a space that was relatively yours. And even if for a time you wander these halls to take a peek into the next adventures of those who you left behind, you are able to share in those joys and those remaining moments. And maybe it is maybe it's just a day in which everybody congregates in this hall, sharing a meal and and talking about what's next on the docket of adventuring, that Brightbottle sits amongst them and realize that maybe the next part of this adventure is not tagging along, but finally finding some rest and some peace. And as your party gathers up their tools, gather up their supplies, gather up everything they need to head out on the next great thing, and they open up the door and walk out to locations unknown to you, and that door kind of closes on it, I think that's when Brightbottle has the ability to let go. And as we're in this epilogue moment, share with me just one final reflection here of Brightbottle, of how he's able to say these goodbyes, and make peace with his time here, as he moves on to a new adventure that is intrinsically his to experience.
Yeah, I think like you described it, the party gets ready for another adventure to head out, and I think this time he wishes the dwarf cleric goodwill and wishes the best for him. He says goodbye to his other allies that he formed very close relationships with, and when they ask what he'll be doing, he says, "Oh, I'm just going to take a rest for this time. Instead of always putting myself out there and always grinding for success, I think I'm just going to take it easy this time." And they accept it, and they are happy for him, and they acknowledge that maybe it is what he needs. And I think he says goodbye to them, and he watches them basically disappear into the horizon, and he enters the fortress. He finds his home, or excuse me, his kind of bedroom or his quarters that were for him alone. And I think he probably just kind of lays down in bed and actually rests and closes his eyes and gets comfortable. And I like to imagine that as he closes his eyes and lays still there, we kind of see his body just sort of start to fade away, and then all that's left is just the room with no one inside it. And Brightbottle's able to find some peace finally.
Yeah. And as you settle in into your bed, as you pull those covers over you and just settle for the first time in maybe a long time, the ever going grind of things, of just continuing to pursue can be kind of put to rest. And I think in one final just contented sigh and the closing of eyes, Brightbottle is able to finally let go and move on from this adventure to a new adventure waiting for him on the other side. And I think with that, we will end our session today.
Feels good. Feels good to let go.
Wonderful. So good. Brightbottle was amazing. So what a great character.
He was an amazing character. It was a character that I had for a long time and had just a ridiculous life. So it was nice to talk about it again and get some perspective on his death and it does feel like there's some closure there with him now.
Wonderful. That's awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We here at Mayday, and continue to check out all the other cool stuff. We have tons of other people playing this game, including 6 wonderful guests who are sharing their characters outside of the wonderful folks here at Mayday. If you liked Ghostfi was a game that I wrote in 2022 in pursuit of being able to tell stories with characters that have died or that people wanted, that folks maybe wanted to reconnect with in a unique way, and learn to say goodbye to them when stories and chapters come to their end. So if you like this game and want to bring it to your table or to explore your own characters, be sure to follow the link below. And you'll be able to get your own copy and see how Ghostfi might treat you in your character's journey. But until next time, we'll see you guys soon, and have a good one.
Thanks for running the game, Eli.
Of course.